Hello there. We start in the United States, where the Federal Reserve gave financial markets a double boost on Wednesday. It says the world's biggest economy will recover much faster than it was predicting a few months ago, as vaccines are rolled out and government stimulus cash begins to flow. And it's put it to rest, for now at least, the fears that higher interest rates are around the corner. Well, the Fed has promised to keep them close to zero until recovery is complete. Michelle Fleury has the details. You can say that again, Michelle. Take a look at some of the numbers that are coming up just now. Huge reassurance, certainly, for the markets. And you can see what happened with Wall Street's results. The S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Average both closing at new record highs. You can see them there. Unbelievable figures there. Above 33,000 for the very first time, the Dow up there. That positive sentiment has continued on the Asian markets too. But yields or implied interest rates on bond markets have remained quite high. Those concerns clearly haven't gone away entirely. Well, let's speak now to Swetha Ramachandran, who is an investment manager at GAM Investments in London. Thanks very much for joining us. Swetha, promising to keep interest rates low whilst at the same time raising forecasts for growth. That sounds like a bit of a recipe for a bubble to me. Does it to you? There's tricky timing for all of this. It's a delicate moment for, the $21 trillion market for US government debt. Has the trouble that we've seen in recent weeks in the bond markets been quelled temporarily or for good, or not at all, because the yields are still pretty high? US, though, because tensions with China, are they going to ease under the Biden administration, or should we be bracing for more years of trade wars between these two economic superpowers? We could get a clearer picture later today when the two sides meet at a summit in Alaska. China's been spinning it as a chance for a reset in their relationship, but there's been no clear indication that President Biden actually wants to start removing tariffs on Chinese goods at all, or certainly anytime soon. Let's talk now to James Green. He's a senior research fellow at Georgetown University. He's also a former minister Counselor for Trade at the US Embassy in Beijing. Thanks very much for joining us, James. Now, just before this meeting, Washington imposed sanctions on 24 Chinese and Hong Kong officials over this new Chinese law that severely erodes democracy in Hong Kong. What kind of tone or message does that send to China? Quite a list, James. Now, I mean, in your view, do you think the days of strategic and economic dialogue really a thing of the past, certainly between these two countries? I'll leave it there. James Green, thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you. Now, let's stay with US-China relations, because US regulators have begun proceedings to revoke the operating licenses of 3 Chinese-owned telecoms firms. Following the story is Sharanjit Lail, who is in our Asia Business Hub. Tell us more, Sharanjit. What do you know? Thanks very much, Sharanjit. Sharanjit Lail in Singapore for us. Do stay with us here on BBC News. Still to come, This is BBC World News, the latest headlines for you. Now, the European Union's medicines regulator is expected to deliver its findings today into the safety of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Germany initially dismissed concerns from some European countries, saying there was no evidence to support a link between the vaccine and blood clots. But earlier this week, it joined several other governments which have temporarily suspended use of the vaccine. Our Berlin correspondent Jenny Hill explains why the German government took the decision and what the consequences might be. Interesting. Now, let's turn our attention to the environment, because humans have consumed more of the world's resources in the last 50 years than in all previous history. Absolutely staggering, that fact. We're now dumping more than 2 billion tonnes of rubbish every year, with electronics the fastest growing source of waste. More than 90% of the plastics that we use are not able to be recycled either. Campaigners say more recycling is the only way to stop waste spiralling out of control. And today is Global Recycling Day. Let's speak now to Ranjit Baxi, who is the president of the Global Recycling Foundation, who joins me now from the UK. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, my producer and I were looking at some of the figures before coming on air and doing this interview, and we were looking at the population growth. 2.5 billion people in the world in 1950. Our population has more than tripled since then. So is conspicuous consumption just a function of population growth? that 53 million tonnes of e-waste generated every year will more than double by 2050. It makes it the fastest growing source of waste in the world. What role should the tech companies specifically take in terms of really managing their own supply chain and reducing waste? That's it from me. Plenty more coming up. Where the Federal Reserve gave financial markets a double boost on Wednesday. It says the world's biggest economy will recover much faster than it was predicting a few months ago, as vaccines are rolled out and government stimulus cash begins to flow. And it's put it to rest, for now at least, the fears that higher interest rates are around the corner. Well, the Fed has promised to keep them close to zero until recovery is complete. Michelle Fleury has the details.